another stereotype that came to my mind instantly as I was asking that question is Asian men have small dicks.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
I think that people need to wake up. I think people need to stop reducing whatever they've learned to, rumors and to media. I mean, to, offer an additional stereotype, this stereotype that Asian women, have tight vaginas
Uh-huh.
because you're small and you're petite and
I've never
you're
heard of that.
oh, goodness. Yeah. And therefore, the stereotype that, like, oh, I want you not just because you would be the ideal wife, but
Uh-huh.
also you would feel tighter than most other people that, I might have been active with. And
Interesting.
so there's just all of this, again, these stereotypes that might seem positive, might seem negative. All of it is bad because it is exactly that, a stereotype.
Mhm, mhm. And like you said, reducing a person, a multifaceted human being to just
Right.
this one thing.
Right.
Like, oh, it doesn't matter what she has accomplished. She's just this one thing.
Right.
And what
Right.
a disservice.
Absolutely.
Uh, we were talking offline a little bit about the experiences of the people like the Asians in Asia, like Asians in the Philippines, like you were mentioning, and I was talking about Thailand and how like that's slightly different. And you were talking about that examples of Thailand and the Philippines. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So most of my experience with the Philippines is in the provinces and not so much Metro Manila. And I want to make that distinction because I know that culturally they are drastically different. So if anyone's listening in and thinks of the Philippines as just Manila, this is
Right.
not going to necessarily relate or be translatable to you. But for those that are familiar with, provinces, this is where my family is from, in two different provinces, and the reproductive health organization that I am a board of director of is also based in one of the other provinces. So I'm most familiar with three different provinces. That is Romblon, Nueva Vizcaya, and Palawan. And these are far, like in terms of literal distance from Manila. And therefore, the experiences of that, rural nature tend to be ones that are extremely draconian, rooted in the Catholic faith, and extremely misogynistic and patriarchal. That sense of sexual liberation, or even, owning and being empowered by your sexuality, is definitely not fully present in Manila, but it is definitely not something even being considered in the provinces. So, when you're in a metropolis like, Manila, there's going to be more diversity of thought and education available, and international influence that is going to allow for possibly more avenues and outlets to be sexually liberated. But in, these rural areas of the provinces, it's definitely not the case. And there is really not an understanding of sex being anything except for the purpose of procreation, and of power in terms of, sexual violence. But the idea of pleasure coming from sex is extremely taboo and rarely discussed.
Wow. So, in those provinces, women with their like vibrator masturbating is not a thing.
I mean, I don't even know where you could buy a vibrator in any of the provinces,
What about
honestly.
Manila? Probably is it
Probably more so in Manila again,
okay.
but it's not where I have the most experience.
Mhm,
But I mean, I'm sure there is a
mhm,
sex toy shop, an adult video store,
mhm.
or 100 in Manila.
Right.
There is a quote red light district in
Right.
Manila, and oftentimes those are occupied by white men and
Same.
European white men who
Yeah.
are coming in for vacation, looking for a bride, and hoping to leave with somebody. And
You
so
said
it's
this bride thing a couple times. Can
mhm.
you talk more about that? Like, do people actually go find a bride?
Oh yeah, oh
Is it
yeah.
a thing? Is it a whole industry? Like, what is this? Like, I mean,
If
I've
you
seen 90 Day Fiance, but I thought that was an
sure.
individual case.
Sure. So, I mean, if you Google mail order bride and put images or just see info, you'll often see that something connected to the Philippines is usually at the top of that search. And, you know, because of that stereotype, beyond what I shared about Asian stereotypes, you know, being subservient, a Filipina wife is the ideal wife because of
Why is
our
that?
hospitality, because of our ability to speak English, because of it's one of our national languages. So it's just a very tourist friendly place for you to find someone that you can communicate with and carry all their favorite Asian stereotypes as well. And you know, this type of stereotype is one that I've experienced here from an Uber driver in New York City.
Whoa, what did he say?
I get into the car. Uber driver looks back and says, Justine. I said, hi, yep, that's me, you know, going to XYZ place. And the question is, what are you? Which is a typical answer I'll get in, you know, the United States of America, because it's their way of asking me, you know, how foreign I am. And, you know, I'm rolling my eyes and thinking, is it today that I address the microaggression, or do I just get this over with because I want now a quiet car?
Yeah.
And so I just
How much
address
effort
it. And
do you want to put in?
I said, you know, so like, you know, where are you from, or what are you? And I said, I'm Filipina. And I figured like that would be end of conversation, but of course not. The conversation continues where, you know, the driver says, oh, Filipina. How many friends have told me that a Filipina wife is the ideal wife?
Really?
And what was interesting about this this day was actually I was en route to a Filipina production on you know, the colonization of our bodies that I was actually producing and was a performer in as well. And so it was just, you know, this very you know, difficult moment where I was like, I am trying to be so beyond this world, and this is a very clear reminder of the world that I actually remain in. You know, being reduced to this idea. And so I kind of just like nodded in my head, didn't respond, didn't want to, you know, entertain this conversation. But this is how people see us. And, you know, like Christina Yuna Lee, rest in peace, February 13th of this year, right, is stabbed multiple times on her way home in Chinatown in the middle of the night from a complete stranger. And reports say that during the interview, he said, well, I was sexually motivated by her, who was a complete stranger. So how are you sexually motivated by someone you've never met before? Oh, because you've reduced her face and her race to a sexual object and something that you're used to jacking off to, because her body is one of the, you know, top search terms on Pornhub.
Yeah. Whoa, that's crazy. So this is what he said?
This is what he said.
I was sexually
Same thing happened in Atlanta at the massage parlor. The Korean women that died by the shooting asked the same, the perpetrator, the same thing. A white man having a bad day. He said, I needed to get rid of my temptations. Whoa. He doesn't know these people, these masseuses, but he associates temptations with, you know, these Asian women. So it's not about like how this affects our dating life and all of that. This is literal life-saving content that we need to be talking about, because people are only talking about this in the context of violence and Asian trauma.
Thanks for listening. This was Love Bites. Love Bites by Dr. Tara. Follow Dr. Tara on social media at lovebites.co. Have an orgasmic day.